Amarachi balanced her small suitcase in her hand as the taxi stopped in front of her family home in Enugu. She had not told anyone she was coming. After 3 years abroad, completing her master's degree in London, she wanted to surprise her father, Chief Emmanuel Nwafor. She had imagined the moment over and over again. She pictured his wide smile, his strong arms pulling her close, maybe even tears of joy rolling down his cheeks. But what she saw froze her heart. The mansion stood tall as always, but right at the entrance gate, in the heavy rain, her father was kneeling on the wet ground. The once proud man, known across the East as a billionaire businessman, was bent low, his clothes soaked through, his hands trembling as he held the shoes of a young woman. Amarachi dropped her bag, her breath caught. This was not the father she knew. This was not the man who raised her to be strong. Chief Emmanuel, who once commanded respect from governors and captains of industry, was kneeling like a servant, begging with his eyes. The young woman standing before him was maybe in her late 20s. Her red umbrella shielded her from the rain, and her face carried a strange calm. She simply looked down at him as though he was nothing more than an errand boy. Amarachi's chest tightened. Who was this woman? And why was her father humiliating himself in such a way? She wanted to run to him, to shout, to ask questions, but her legs refused to move. She stood in shock until the woman spoke softly. Amarachi could not hear the words over the heavy rain, but she saw her father nodding quickly, still kneeling, still clutching her shoes. Finally, the woman turned and entered the house, her heels clicking against the tiles of the veranda. Chief Emmanuel remained kneeling for a moment longer, staring at the ground like a man who had lost his mind. Then slowly he stood up, water dripping from his clothes. Amarachi's heart broke as she whispered to herself, "What has happened to my father?" She picked up her suitcase and walked into the compound. The gateman Musa, who had known her since she was a child, tried to smile when he saw her, but his eyes were full of sadness. "Welcome home, Ada," he said quietly, almost fearfully. Amarachi looked at him closely. Musa's face was thinner, older, and there was something in his eyes that warned her all was not well. She wanted to ask questions, but before she could speak, she heard her father's voice behind her. "Amara, my daughter," she turned. He was standing at the entrance, his soaked clothes clinging to his body, his lips trembling. He rushed forward and hugged her tightly. For a moment, she felt the father she knew. But even in his arms, she noticed how weak he felt, how broken his voice sounded. "Papa, why were you kneeling in the rain?" she asked softly. He pulled back and forced a smile. "My daughter, you would not understand. Things are different now." "Different how?" Before he could answer, the young woman appeared again at the doorway. She was dressed elegantly in a long gown, her hair shining, her expression calm but sharp. Amarachi watched as her father quickly stepped aside for the woman to pass, bowing his head slightly like a servant would before a master. Amarachi clenched her fists. Her father, the great Chief Emmanuel Nwafor, was behaving like a slave in his own house. Inside, the mansion looked strangely empty. The laughter, the staff, the warmth she remembered were gone. Only silence lingered, except for the sharp clicking of the young woman's heels. At the dining table that evening, Amarachi noticed her father barely touched his food. The woman ate slowly, with authority, and every now and then she glanced at Amarachi with a faint smile that felt more like a warning. After dinner, Amarachi went to her old room. She sat on the bed, confused and restless. Musa, the gateman, knocked quietly and slipped inside. His voice shook as he spoke. "Ada, forgive me for speaking, but you must be careful. Things have changed. That woman, Madame Stella, she is not what she seems." Amarachi frowned. "Madame Stella? Who is she?" Musa lowered his eyes. "She controls your father now. Since your mother's death, she has taken over everything. Staff have been sacked, friends have stopped visiting, and your father, he is no longer the man you knew." Amarachi's chest tightened. She looked out the window into the dark night. For the first time since she returned, she felt fear. She whispered to herself, "What has this woman done to my father?" But deep down, she already knew. Something was terribly wrong in the Nwafor mansion, and she was determined to uncover the truth. The next morning, Amarachi woke up to the sound of her father's laughter. It startled her. For years, she had longed to hear that sound again after her mother's death. But now it felt strange, even forced. She rushed downstairs. In the living room, she saw him sitting beside Madame Stella, both of them watching a comedy on TV. His laugh was too loud, too eager, while Stella simply smiled faintly, sipping orange juice. "Good morning, Papa," Amarachi greeted. Her father looked up, his eyes lighting up for a brief second, but then Stella's hand touched his arm and his smile dimmed into something weaker. "Good morning, Amara," he said quietly. Madame Stella's voice was soft but sharp. "My dear, hope you slept well. We like peace in this house. I hope you are comfortable." Amarachi forced a nod. Comfortable, yes, but her mind was burning with questions. As the day passed, Amarachi noticed more things that disturbed her. The gardener was gone. The cook's room was empty. Even the driver who had served her father for years was no longer there. Instead, Stella moved around with an air of authority, giving instructions to delivery men, signing papers, even telling her father when to rest. At lunch, Amarachi tried again. "Papa, where are all the staff? Why does this house feel so empty?" Her father frowned. "Enough questions, Amara. Stella takes care of me now. That is all that matters." Amarachi's throat tightened. She looked at Stella, who smiled sweetly as though she was winning a silent battle. Later that evening, Amarachi slipped out of the mansion and went to visit an old family friend, Barrister Okeke. He had been close to her late mother and had always advised her father. The old man shook his head when he saw her. "Amarachi, you came just in time. Your father was here last week with that woman. He said he wanted to change his will, to transfer most of his properties to her." Amarachi gasped. "That can't be true." "It is," Barrister Okeke said gravely. "I delayed the process, but the pressure is strong. My child, if you do not act, you may lose everything your father worked for." On her way back, Amarachi's thoughts raced. Was Stella only after his wealth, or was something deeper binding him to her? That night, she couldn't sleep. Restless, she walked quietly through the mansion. The corridors that once felt like home now felt heavy, almost suffocating. In the study, she found papers scattered on the table, letters of dismissal for staff, documents Stella had been signing with her father's approval. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. She quickly hid behind the curtains. Stella entered the room, but instead of switching on the light, she walked to a corner and pulled out a small black bag from the bookshelf. She opened it carefully. Amarachi's eyes widened. Inside were strange objects: cowries, red cloth, a small carved image, and a bottle filled with dark liquid. Stella whispered words Amarachi did not understand and then placed the bag back before leaving. Amarachi's heart pounded. This was not ordinary. The next morning, she decided to confide in Musa, the gateman. She told him what she saw. He looked terrified. "Ada, you must be careful. I have seen her bury things in the garden at night. Once I tried to ask questions, she threatened to kill me." Amarachi's hands shook. So it is true. She is using charms on my father. But what could she do? Her father was blind with love, or perhaps something worse. If she accused Stella openly, he would defend her. She needed proof, and she needed help. That evening, while Stella prepared for a night outing, Amarachi approached her father in the balcony. The rain was falling again softly this time. "Papa," she said, her voice breaking, "don't you see what is happening? This woman is destroying you. She is not who you think she is." Chief Emmanuel's face hardened. "Amarachi, stop this nonsense. Stella is my wife now. She is my peace. Do not speak against her again." Tears stung Amarachi's eyes. She had lost her mother already. Was she about to lose her father too? As Stella's car left the compound that night, Musa whispered to Amarachi, "Ada, if you truly want the truth, there's one man who can help. Pastor Ez. He knows these things. Amarachi nodded. She was ready. The battle for her father's soul had just begun. Next morning, Amarachi rose before dawn. Sleep had abandoned her. With Musa by her side, she left the mansion quietly and made her way to Pastor Ez's small church at the edge of town. The church was nothing grand, just wooden benches and a tin roof, but inside was a quiet strength. Pastor Ez was waiting, his eyes calm but piercing. "My daughter, Musa told me what is happening in your father's house," he said gently. "What you saw is not ordinary. That woman is using charms to hold your father's mind. But the power of God is greater than any power of darkness." Amarachi's hands trembled. "What must I do?" Pastor Eze prayed with her. He told her to fast to keep her spirit strong. He gave her a small bottle of anointing oil and instructed, "Tonight, go with courage. What is hidden in that house will be revealed." Amarachi returned home with determination burning inside her. Stella was out again, attending one of her endless night parties, leaving her father asleep in the sitting room. With Musa keeping watch, Amarachi slipped into the garden with a torchlight. She searched the flower beds carefully until her foot struck something hard. Her breath caught. She dug with her bare hands until she uncovered a small clay pot wrapped in black cloth. The smell was foul. She pulled it out and saw strange objects inside: feathers, hair, a photograph of her father, and a paper with his name written in red ink. Amarachi's heart pounded. She poured the anointing oil over the pot and prayed desperately, her tears mixing with the rain that had begun to fall again. Suddenly, a strong wind rushed through the garden and the clay pot cracked in two. At that very moment, inside the mansion, Chief Emmanuel jolted awake. His eyes widened as though scales had fallen from them. He looked around the empty sitting room, confusion flooding his face. For the first time in months, his mind was clear. "Amara," he called weakly. "Amara, where are you?" She ran inside, mud still on her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Papa, I am here." He held her hand tightly. "My daughter, what has happened to me? Why do I feel like I've been in a dream?" Before she could answer, Stella's car drove into the compound. The gates slammed shut behind her. She entered the house with her usual confidence, but when she saw Chief Emmanuel standing tall, his eyes sharp and alive, her smile faltered. "Darling," she began softly, "you should be resting." "Resting?" Chief Emmanuel's voice thundered. "Woman, what did you do to me? You trapped me like a fool, made me kneel in the rain, made me sack my staff, made me almost destroy everything I built." Stella froze. Everyone in the compound had gathered now. Musa, neighbors, even passers-by who had heard the shouting. For the first time, her calm mask cracked. "I did it for love," she cried. "I only wanted to protect what we had." "Love?" Chief Emmanuel roared. "You call witchcraft love?" The neighbors murmured. Musa shouted, "Officer, she is the one! Call the police!" As the sirens wailed in the distance, Stella tried to run, but two policemen blocked her at the gate. They handcuffed her as the crowd watched. Her tears fell, but no one pitied her. Inside the mansion, Chief Emmanuel sank into a chair, holding his daughter's hand. His voice was soft but filled with regret. "Amara, I failed you. I failed your mother's memory. But you saved me." Amarachi wept. "Papa, we will heal. We will bring back the peace this house once had." Days later, the staff returned joyfully. Mama Ifeoma, the cook, clapped her hands in the kitchen and said, "Eh?" This house is alive again. The gardener whistled as he trimmed the flowers. The mansion began to breathe with laughter once more. Stella was later exposed in court. Evidence of her past surfaced: wealthy widowers, strange deaths, properties she had seized. This time, there was no escape. She was sentenced for fraud and spiritual manipulation. One evening, as the sun set over the mansion, Chief Emmanuel sat with Amarachi in the garden. His voice trembled with emotion. "Your mother would be proud of you. You stood firm when I was blind. You brought light back to this house." Amarachi smiled through her tears. "Papa, I only did what she would have wanted." The mansion, once silent and heavy, now echoed with joy again. And in the quiet of the night, Amarachi whispered to herself, "Evil may try to reign, but truth and love will always fight back." This is the end of this story. The moral lesson of this story is, evil may wear a sweet face, but truth, prayer, and courage will always set the captive free. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Join our family of story lovers. And don't forget to hit the bell so you'll be the first to know when a new story drops.